And the next is Allies in Action, people who are here to talk about the next phase. The founder of the Corner of the Court project is going to be the moderator. A unique approach to inclusion that features women's stories of male allies. She began this project during her work with her master's research at Columbia University, couldn't get into a good Ivy League school, where she found that men had natural abilities to play ally roles, but often weren't given the reinforcement or tools to know how to make an impact. She has 17 years of experience in leadership development, recently leading the Austria, Switzerland, Germany Change Management Consulting Group at Accenture. She's also an engineering talent partner at Bloomberg, and she'll introduce the partners for her panel. Wunderman is in the group, so it's going to be a fun time.
Great, so we are going to kick off our fireside chat, which is all about allies in action. And this is really going to be a celebration of everything that we've done today. It's been a tremendous day so far, and we're going to be looking at all the things that we've covered and do it from the head and the heart. And we're going to do it through the lens of these two inspiring gentlemen that I'll introduce now. First, we have John Murphy. John is Senior Director of Sales Operations with Blue Shield of California. He's worked there for 14 years. At Blue Shield, John is the co-founder of the Manning Up for Gender Inclusion program. You can think of that as a dinner party-like atmosphere for men and women to come together and discuss key themes around gender equality in the workplace. Manning Up has heavy support from the Blue Shield CEO and top management. And John's co-founder, Angela, is also with us today in the audience. Angela, where are you? There she is with, I think, the whole Blue Shield contingency. I think you guys are sponsors. Thank you for everything you've done. Yes. John says that gender equality is not a zero-sum game, that by being inclusive, we can grow our businesses so there are opportunities for men and women. Having spoken with John, I know that he is very well known for his commitment to inclusion, and he is a dedicated father to a daughter and a son, which has influenced a lot of the stories he'll share with us this afternoon. And John, while I think your golf game still needs some serious improvement, it's still a delight to have you here. So please welcome John. And we also have Jim Wunderman. Jim is president and CEO of the Bay Area Council, which is a CEO-led public policy and advocacy organization. The Bay Area Council, since 1945, has worked to make the Bay Area the most innovative, globally competitive, and sustainable region in the world. Jim has been CEO since 2004, and recently was named one of the top 100 movers and shakers in California politics. Jim's work with the Bay Area Council has him working on supporting significant legislation such as San Francisco's Paid Family Leave Act. Jim will also share with us some great research and resources from his council's work in our discussion. Jim has 4 children, including 2 daughters who have recently entered the workforce. Jim, we are delighted to have you here today. So this is Allies in Action. It's our fireside chat, and as mentioned, we're going to get to the head and the heart of what it means to be an ally. John, I'll start with you. So you have essentially, at Blue Shield, created a space for men to discuss gender equality. How do you make this an effective discussion? Is there a formula you follow? What are some things that have made that successful?
Yeah, sure. First, before I answer that, I do want to say that I'm not a D&I expert. I am not a professional speaker. To be on the stage with some of the speakers we've had today, this is like a huge honor that I've been selected to be here. So bear with me, I may not be as polished with my one-liners, the stories, but I am very excited to be here. So how I was approached about a year ago or so, right? So I've only been at this for a year or two, so to help get men more involved. And I said in order to do it my way, I would have to do it in a more intimate environment. And that's where the dinner party concept came from. and bringing people in to initially talk about it and just talk about, I think someone showed it earlier, start with awareness and really sharing stories amongst each other on why this is important to whoever it is in the room. And once you get the awareness, then we start talking about behavioral changes. And it's not like you have to completely develop a behavioral change complex plan that takes a year. Literally, you can be inclusive. You can be an inclusive leader overnight. You just make sure that the people who have ideas get credit for their ideas. Gender, race, whatever it is, that person has that idea, they should get credit for it. I mean, there's so many simple behavioral things that you can do immediately to make a big difference.
So John, are you, if I understand correctly, you're looking at building awareness, and if behavior change happens, that's great, but that's not the focus of every single meeting that you have?
Yeah, it starts with, the awareness discussion goes on for a long time, right? Because we're drinking wine, we're telling stories, so that tends to go on. Then we start talking about the different behavioral changes. We always bring in Angela's idea, a senior executive into the discussion because it helps to validate that what we're talking about is important to the organization. And then we actually give each one of our participants a feminist fight club book that they can read and hopefully take with them to home. And then we try to follow up with them to see how they're doing. Like once, okay, you have the awareness, we've talked about behavioral changes you can do, and then we like to follow up with the men who have participated. And I'll be honest, some have really gravitated towards it, and others we've had a hard time. You know, they love the discussion, they had a good time, and then we're finding that they're not following through on some of what we had hoped for.
So that's a great start. I'm going to get back to you about how we can sustain some of the behaviors that you guys come up with. Jim, I'll ask you. You play a key role in influencing and supporting legislation, and we saw from John's example, there's a lot of senior level support. You have a senior executive come in, and you work with CEOs, and you have 275 CEOs as part of your council. How do you use your role to make policy changes?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor to do it. So the council's been around for a long time, and it's a way for top business leaders in the Bay Area to work on stuff that's important to the Bay Area. And the first big project was building of the BART system, and we've been involved with a lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the issues you read about in the paper, and a lot of them are typically, I would call them more gender-neutral issues. They sort of affect the genders more or less equally. We don't think about them in those terms. And we just, historically, we work on those things. So we bring together, these folks. We form committees, focus on these various issues, and hopefully come to a place where the combination of work by the executive leadership, and these are really smart people who lead top organizations, can work together with our professional staff, make some recommendations. We have an institute that often studies, Bay Area Council Economic Institute, that studies these various issues and analyzes their complexity and applies them to how they affect the economy, and that gives us some tools to go ahead and advocate for solutions. So we're not a think tank. We think of ourselves as more of a do tank kind of an organization. We've had a certain amount of success, and the issues we work on are a little frustrating, and they tend to be generational. So there's a lot of folks who would like to see solutions come to things in quick sound bites and 30-second commercials, and most of the things we work on aren't like that. They take time, and hopefully our members understand that. In the case of gender equity, one of the things we've been looking a lot at is workforce, and this is where a not gender neutral issue kind of arose. And a number of our members, some may be in this room, approached the executive committee, which kind of runs the organization and tells us where to focus our efforts, said, we really need to think about this as a strategic issue for the Bay Area, because when women are successful in their professional careers, when they're elevated in positions in management, when they run companies, when they serve on boards, the companies do better. We saw a lot of research to that effect. And so we had those conversations initially. There were some folks who were a little reticent, said, why should we change focusing on the things, we need to stay really focused on just a few things that we do well. And other folks said, no, it's kind of time that we moved on and we realized the importance of this. I think I was one of those people, and I wasn't always probably one of them, but it come to that conclusion. And so You know, the nature of the organization is it's truly business-led. It's a group that's kind of unique. And when we speak, we kind of do it with a pretty good voice. And once in a while, and you know, the case of the Parental Leave Act in San Francisco, we weren't necessarily joined by other business associations in the city, which caused a little bit of a fracas. So, you know, being CEO-led allows you to be a little bit of a, do bigger things, be more visionary. The kind of people that, you know, that Victor was talking about, who are courageous, you know, though, to a big extent, those are our members, and they afford us the opportunity to maybe take a step out front and not be so conservative and you know, avoid controversy, things like that.
Yeah, to that point, and either Jim or John, what are some things that men then do as allies to carry forward? So it's not a once and done. What are some behaviors that we can take away that make this behavior sustainable?